That way we can share it with those who are away with family or for other reasons couldn't make it, and even potential new members, so they can hear what Karen's report is, things like that. So at this time, I think we're going to do the collect, and I think, Joyce, you were going to read that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I think I got it backwards, Becky. We'll get back to you.
Okay.
Keep us, O God, from pettiness. Let us be large in thought, in word, in deed. Let us be done with fault-finding, and leave off self-seeking. May we put away all pretense, and meet each other face to face, without self-pity and without prejudice. May we never be hasty in judgment, and always generous. Let us take time for all things. Make us grow, calm, serene, gentle. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, straightforward and unafraid. Grant that we may realize it is the little things that create differences, that in the big things of life we are at one. And may we strive to touch and to know the great common human heart for us all. And oh, Lord God, let us forget not to be kind.
Thank you so much. Those words are very meaningful. And Becky, if you can lead us in the state song. Now, Karen, it sounds terrible, but our hearts are in it, okay? We don't have one of those people with a soundboard to make us sound really good.
No judgment here, Joella, no judgment.
Not that we'd sound really good even if we were, edited, but it would sound better.
Would sound better.
Thank you so much. And Karen, sorry for your ears. Unless you were singing along, you made us sound really good. Okay, so we had the pledge, the state song, and the collect. And at this time, so that we are respectful of Karen's time, we're going to go right to our speaker. Now, Karen is the Chamber of Commerce president. She's doing a stellar job, and she was recently nominated for an award. I'm trying to think what it's called, but it's Most Influential Women in Central Pennsylvania or something of that nature by the Central Penn Business Journal. So that's quite an honor, and she is certainly deserving. So I can't wait to see the results, but I think she's going to represent Lebanon County well. And she has 2 children and a dog, Cooper, I think it is. And he has a stuffed animal that looks just like him, and he hugs it when he sleeps. So he was adorable. She posts pictures on her Facebook page. At any rate, enough of an introduction. Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joellen. What I would really like to know before I start is from each of you, what were your careers? Were they homemaker? Were you in an office job? Or what kind of work did you do?
I was an OR tech.
Oh, wow.
And what does
hospital?
OR mean?
The operating room.
Operating room.
Oh, as opposed to ER, OR. Thank you. Yes. And I didn't know that. Thank you. Becky?
Well,
and where was that?
I'm working at Juniper Village in the activities department. So it's been a challenging year. And I just picked up another job as the accompanist at the Moravian Church because they're in between accompanists. So I'm subbing there till they find somebody. So this is a busy week for me, Holy Week and Easter Sunday, 2 services. So
wow.
Yeah.
Becky's very talented. We call on her a lot. And Joyce.
I was a nurse and I taught nursing for 34 years.
At the Career Tech Center.
Yeah. I loved it.
Wow.
Just remarkable.
So I don't know, were any of you in ORs or nursing at the Lebanon Valley General or the Lebanon Valley Sanatorium?
No.
Years
No.
ago, I was there
Okay.
with students, but I never was
Okay.
employed there.
And where were you
Oh,
in?
okay. All right.
What hospital?
Me, Joyce,
No, Anne.
and
At the VA.
Oh, at the VA.
Oh,
Okay,
the
there you
VA.
go. All right.
one of my favorite
Excellent.
places.
Yeah.
So, so the reason I ask is because I think we all come from really varied backgrounds. And one of the things that I learned during the pandemic is that there are so many businesses that we don't even think about that are the ones that struggled the most. And so, you know, once the pandemic hit and Governor Wolf shut down business, about 75% of the employers in our county, of the employees in our county, were still able to go to work because they were considered in essential jobs. So you think about that, and right off the bat, about 75% were technically okay. The 25% of businesses were either able to start doing work from home, or they had to completely shut down because they weren't allowed to come in contact with their client base, whether it was a hairdresser or a restaurant or what, you know, whatever else was closed. So some of the things that happened to the 75% who went back to work are that many of them were all of a sudden out of childcare. Many of them were all of a sudden homeschooling. And so while many of those people could go back to work, some of them really couldn't because somebody had to stay home with children. And if you're a single mother or a single father, then that was even more difficult. So when unemployment was expanded at the end of March, that really left kind of a juxtaposition of those who really needed that supplemental income because they had to stay home for caregiving. Maybe they were afraid for their own health. Maybe they had a family member they were afraid for. There was a lot of reasons why some people stayed home. So that unemployment was really important to help them get through a time that was out of their control. But it also put a huge strain on employers to find enough employees to come back to work and perform the functions that they could. So that's just kind of a little bit of an insight onto some of the regularly employed individuals. But I think one of the things that I learned during the pandemic, and Joellen is aware of this, that I was one of a team of people who helped to manage the CARES grants, which were grants provided to businesses, nonprofits, and tourism agents in industries within Lebanon County. We ended up giving out over $9 million of funds that came from the CARES Act. And going through that process taught me that there was so much more about business in Lebanon County than I ever considered. And I say that because, you know, I run a business organization. The Chamber of Commerce is run from funds, 100% from funds from our business members. They pay for a membership, they attend our events and programs. And so that's kind of my circle of influence. Those are the people that I talk to on a regular basis. Those are the businesses that I know, plus additional businesses that might not be members that I frequent personally. But when I started looking through the grant applications, I was absolutely shocked and humbled because there were hundreds and hundreds of businesses that I had never heard of. And I thought, well, I've lived in Lebanon County since 1990. How could I not have known that there's a huge business that's working and employing 50 people and I've never heard of them? Or how can there be so many smaller businesses that I've never heard of? And it made my world that I thought was large look really small. And the reason that I bring that up is because these are, you know, it's easy to understand the plight of those that you know. So you can talk to your insurance agent and you can talk to your neighbor who's working for some other company, and you understand what they're going through because they're telling you their story. But in the CARES grants, we asked them to write a narrative about how COVID and the pandemic had affected them and their business. And I think what we forget are all of the self-employed who might just do cleaning. Maybe they're doing house cleaning or office cleaning. And while it's not making them, you know, tens of millions of dollars. It's what it takes to get their bills paid and to feed their children and you know, keep their household going. And when they were no longer able to do that, they didn't have access to the unemployment in the same way that everybody else did. That took a while to get it open for those that were self-employed. So the same thing when I think about hairdressers, and which are usually independent contractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists. There's just a whole slew of people who provide personal services that all of a sudden had everything cut off. And I can tell you, as somebody who ran their own business for 30 years, for 20 years, I did graphic design and marketing. There's not always a big margin of money that you have tucked away in the bank as a self-employed person that you can just say, well, I'll coast for the next 6 months. It's okay. I have enough money. Sometimes these are jobs that you work so hard, but the income is just enough to keep you going month to month or week to week. And so these were individuals whose stories were heartbreaking. They were, I'm going to lose my home. You know, I'm going to lose my car. I can't keep the debt collectors away any longer. I have to close my business that I've had forever. And it was really very difficult to read their stories. And I think one of the things that I'm really proud of with our county, and I know I'm kind of going all around in different places here, but our CARES money came in late. It came in late to Lebanon County, more so than the rest of the state. I won't get into all of those details. But we had already been working. You what?
Everybody knows, I guess.
I know. So we had already been working as a group, as a team, on what that process might be to get money out to businesses. And we had a lot of groundwork laid. So when the money finally came through to Lebanon County, within 2 weeks, we had an application on the street that people could apply for. That first round of applications closed 2 weeks later. We processed over 300 applications. And within another week, we announced about $4 million in grant money to businesses. Within 3 weeks, we turned around a process that many places and many organizations take months and months to go through. And I think that that's an amazing testament to the group of individuals that I worked with, which included our tourism bureau, Visit Lebanon Valley, the president there, Jennifer Kuzo, and United Way CEO and director, Brooke Smith, and Susan Eberly with the Lebanon Valley Economic Development Corporation, and especially also our county administrator, Jamie Wogelmuth, because we kind of put our heart on the line with everything and said, how can we write an application that allows these businesses to tell their story? What kind of things are important enough to help us let those who with the greatest need rise to the top of that need list? And they were just incredible people to work with. We just poured over what were the factors that really made that difference. Was it important that they had a lot of employees, so that if their business closed, were we going to have a lot more people unemployed? Was it important to know that they had longevity, that their business had been around for a long time, and that this was such an unforeseen circumstance, they definitely needed to be carried through? Was it important that they had a lot less income in 2020 compared to 2019? Was it important, if they were a nonprofit, that they couldn't hold fundraisers and events like they normally would? So we thought about all of the things that kind of crippled them as businesses and used that to help tell their story. And that came up to 80% of what we gave as a score. The other 20% was the narrative that they wrote. And we had an independent group of people that read through that narrative and scored those as well. They were averaged and added into the total score. I think I had a lot of correspondence that I dealt with from businesses about, when will the decisions be made, or what I didn't get the money, how do I apply again? And just a lot of frustration. I'll back up again. We granted the majority of applicants. We granted, I think the first time, over 200 businesses out of like 260 who were eligible through their application. And it really did make sense. The rubric that we came up with to help score them based on their need really did drop those with the least amount of need to the bottom of the list. And when we finally put all the scoring through and that did that, it was a really such a sigh of relief to know that the things that we had thought so carefully about as to how to determine a business's need for this money really did pull together and gave them a higher score, which then gave them a higher chance of getting the grant money. So kind of going around in circles on that, I think regardless of the scoring and everything else, what really struck me again were the personal stories from individuals, from businesses that had been family run for decades, who, you know, no matter how strong they were, this was just going to shut their doors. From businesses that had been fairly newly started. Maybe they were 3 or 4 years old. And here you have an entrepreneur who had been very successful. And all of a sudden, everything was taken out of their control. And I really related to a lot of the smaller companies and businesses, thinking if it was me and I wasn't in charge of the chamber and I was back when it was my company and I was working from home, which is what I did raising my children, then where would I have been? I would have been in a lot of trouble because I might not have had the same income that I had before, and the bills are still there. So the money that was given out for the CARES grants really went to those with the most need, and it went out very quickly because of the team who came up with the scoring, because of the efficiency in going through the application process, because of the generosity and trust of our county, of our commissioners and our county administrator that trusted the process that we put together, and their understanding that there was a great need to get this money in the community as quickly as possible. And so I have to say that when I talked to the commissioners in the meeting, the first meeting that I gave them a list of applicants and said, these are the ones based on criteria that we think should be granted money, and they voted and they were unanimous. I just started to cry because to me it was such a relief. It wasn't my money, but it was such a relief to know that even though it was an anonymous email, I could email these people and say, you have money coming, just sit tight, it'll be there in a week or 2 or 3, but it's coming. And it doesn't seem like it's an extraordinary thing. But when I talk to people who work in other counties, their commissioners didn't let money go out to businesses in the same way. Their commissioners held most of the money, not every county, but their commissioners held most of the money for their own use. Their commissioners held up the process for many months. We were so far ahead of other counties in getting money out to businesses because they were dragging their feet. They weren't ready. They didn't feel the urgency. Maybe they only had a little bit of money that they allocated to grants. And I say all of that because I think we are really blessed to have the county that we live in. The trust that they put in us and the ability to make quick decisions on things, on getting that money out, really is what saved. What I can definitely say that it's saved probably 100 businesses from closing. We did ask those businesses who received CARES money to reply back with what they used the money on. A lot of it went to payroll. A lot of it went to rent. But many people commented and said things like, thank you so, and they didn't know that they were talking to me because I kept everything anonymous. But they replied with things like, this money was a lifesaver. This money allowed me to stay in my house. This money allowed me to keep my business open. It was just enough. It was what I needed to carry through. This money allowed me to keep my employees employed. They were extraordinarily grateful. And it made all of the hard work that we all put into it so much more worthwhile, because there was a lot of gratitude and there was a huge difference that money made. So that's kind of the CARES money. And I'm going to go on and kind of just touch base on one other thing here, but is there any questions that you guys have about that part of what I've jumbled around on? No?
Covered it.
So where are we now with businesses? Well, I think the majority of businesses have tried to figure out how to function in our pandemic society. They've either, they have employees that are still teleworking, or they do an on-off schedule. Maybe they've downsized and have figured out how to work with less employees. There are some people who have figured out how to sell their product or service under the current guidelines and be able to make a living that way. But there are a few businesses that are still really struggling. Some of them are those that it's out of their hands. And most of that really is kind of the restaurant industry and the entertainment industry, where, you know, you can't really go to Gretna Theater and watch a show with 150 or 200 people in there. There's so many things that are still closed. So those are the ones that I think were strong before, but everything is still out of their control. There's another group of businesses that I think are the ones that are still going to suffer or close, won't ever recover. And those are what I call kind of the mediocre businesses. And I say that with respect for them, in that there's, you know, in the businesses that I've talked to, there are those that they were strong before the pandemic. They figured out a way to work through it, or they had reserves and they got through it and they're still strong. There are those that were really, really on the brink before the pandemic and were never, no matter how much support you gave them, were never going to survive anyway. They were the ones who were going on their way to failure before the pandemic. But it's the mediocre businesses, the businesses that in a normal year would be able to get by. They never made a ton of money, but they never had to close their doors. They made enough to stay open. They were not savvy enough to learn how to grow or expand their business, but they're the ones that still were able to kind of carry through year after year in a normal circumstance. Those are the ones that I think are still suffering the most, because they don't have that business sense on how to climb out of this, but they're not on the brink of closing, because they at least had some stability before the pandemic. And I think there's, you know, when the pandemic started and we talked about closing businesses and the CARES Act and everything else, and I thought, well, how much money can you put into carrying our economy? I mean, is the government just going to carry all of these businesses and people and individuals for months or a year? Like, how much money can you put into it to carry their businesses? And I think that's where we're kind of at now is, you know, we have these mediocre businesses and we have these hospitality businesses that are still struggling. How much money is enough? At what point do you say there's an end in sight, and so a little bit more will carry them through? Or do you say, you know, it's time for you to step up and figure out a way to get through it on your own? And I don't have the perfect answer on it. But I do think that we have to be really understanding for those service businesses. Like I said, the, you know, cleaning services and the housekeepers and or maybe a private daycare center. Sometimes people weren't dropping their children off, or hairdressers, barbershops, salons, all of those places were really struggling to get through. So keep in mind when you're out and about and doing things, all of the little businesses that you do business with, think about if that was yours, how hard it might have been to get through the pandemic. And maybe if they're having a bad day, smile or try to understand that they're having a bad day, maybe because the bills are still piling up or they're still not sure how to get through it. And remember that whatever we can do to support our local businesses is really important.
Thank you, Karen. That's wonderful. And if I can follow up, the county commissioners, as she mentioned, are responsible for receiving those CARES funds, dispensing them, and we go through the audits. If anybody was not truthful, we're held liable and have to pay money back, etc. So on the other hand, when you are in a leadership position, you're taught to delegate, and we chose the team that Karen was part of, and we had to trust them, give them the tools to work, and support them in some of the recommendations they made. And it was just a real pleasure working with her team. Now we have about 10 minutes here yet, but what I wanted to also say is that the federal government has allocated $27 million to Lebanon County. The first round was called CARES. The second round is called the American Recovery Plan. And so I've been on numerous Zooms with Senator Casey and others talking about that. And what I found out is that we're going to be getting half over, I think, in two payments, half this year and half next year. So it will go through two budgets for them, two budget cycles. And one of the things that I've had reporters say, well, what do you think about this? And in fact, I think Lebtown is doing an article right now, but I'm not sure if it was on this topic. But at any rate, different ones have called. And I said, well, with what's happening from this pandemic, we can come at it from strength or we can come at it from weakness. The fact that the federal government chose to help businesses stay afloat, yes, we'll have to pay it back, but that means people are working and paying taxes. To me, that means we're coming from the angle of strength. If indeed there was no financial help for all these people, and one of the groups that wasn't mentioned is the landlords trying to pay mortgages and insurances and taxes to the local governments and the schools without income because some of their tenants lost their jobs and couldn't go to work. And when that happens, sometimes they'll get a little bit of money. And if they're struggling for food or a doctor bill or a dentist bill or anything else, they may put it to that and it might never get to the landlord. So the landlords were really struggling. So that's another group that you have to listen to their stories. And I think that was what Lebtown's article is about. But the bottom line is, if there's no money coming in, these kinds of people will go under, won't be able to pay their local taxes. And then that affects the budgets of the counties, your municipality, whether you live in a city, North Cornwall, South Lebanon, whatever. And, we go into a recession. And it can be a really deep recession. And we have to climb out of that over probably a 10-year period. It's not going to happen overnight. So by coming at it with some funding, I think is the strong route. And that's my personal opinion. But I do know that we have like amounts coming for this year and next year. Now, one thought that I've at least processed is possibly using some for broadband. We have a lot of people working from home trying to use telehealth to visit their doctors and children trying to work from school. A lot of areas in the county do not have good internet, if at all. Yeah, okay, Karen, yes, you know what I'm talking about.
The only thing I have is satellite internet and it's limited on how much you can use.
Okay, so here's a plan in the pandemic. Some of those that did not give their money to businesses instead invested in broadband. They had to get it done in 6 months. Center County is one of those counties. That's where State College is. And what they did was got it up and running in 6 months, and it's working phenomenally. They got satellites. They put out requests for proposals, and a local business person, I'm going to say Rodney or up in Anvil, we have some very qualified local people that could do this. But they would invest the money to put satellites on the EMA towers, which are already built, and the lines of sights are there. So, we have coverage for the radio phones for our 911 workers. And they put that money in, then they can charge, and Center County's charging like $40 a month for internet, which is reasonable if you have, other ones, they're like $80, $90, $100. But the bottom line is that puts like 96% of our county that they can get internet. So that's one thing I would like to pursue. I don't know how the others will feel about that, but I share that with you. So I don't know if all of the money will go for businesses this time, or if some of it will be invested in our infrastructure to help people telehealth, schoolwork, and even work from home if you have a small business, or like the county, we have people working from home and using their internet. And there's a lot of that going on. So we'll see where it goes, but that's just one idea. Does anyone, I thought I'd throw that in there so Karen knows what I'm thinking, but we'll see. Is there any other questions? We have 4 minutes and 44 seconds left on this particular one. We can do our business session on the other link, but let's finish out with Karen on any questions that you might have. None?
I don't have any.
Okay. All right, Liz, thank you for joining us. Nothing? Becky?
No, I just wanted to say I found it very fascinating and very informative, and I really appreciate hearing all of that because, you know, I hadn't really heard any of it before. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Anne, how about you? Any questions?
Well, that's how I thought. That's what I kind of thought about. She was very thorough in explaining it all, which 90% of it I didn't really realize.
Yeah, it was a hard time for our local businesses. And we even did some creative things like buying lunches from local businesses. And we had, I think it was London Family Health was helping to distribute that pool of money that we invested in. So we did some creative things, you know, just to show people that you can do carry out. And that took off. I think the workers weren't there. And this time around, they weren't paying quite the payroll. The businesses themselves maybe were breaking even or floating at least because they were doing the carry out with fewer people. So I don't know, we'll see. They have to provide tax returns and show that they paid their local tax, things like that, so that taxpayer money isn't going to them if they were, as Karen said, some were not staying afloat before the pandemic hit. So there were different restrictions that they had to do and documents they had to provide so that it was all, because we were liable if it doesn't work out. So we did everything to get.
I can tell you that we were pretty flexible with the documents that they provided, and as long as they could show that they knew what their income was for a certain time period, it could be handwritten. I had people take photographs of their appointment books where they jot down how much they charged everybody and total it at the bottom. As long as they had a way to document, we took anything. So, and I know you're going to get cut off. I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you, and remember to shop local.
Yeah. And Catherine's with us. Catherine, do you just want to tell everybody what you did for a living when you were working, or you still work, but what's your main job?
My main job was teaching music.
And you still do that?
See, now
I still do.
You would have trouble during the pandemic doing that if you had to if you were sitting with people side by side teaching lessons. You'd have to give that up.
I'm sorry.
The orders were lifted.
I'm not sorry that I didn't have to do that. It would have been very difficult.
Yes.
And if that was your only livelihood and that's what was paying your bills,
yes,
that would have been very scary, I think, right?
Yes, it would have been.
Liz, we have a minute and 20 seconds. Tell us about is yours an investment firm that you work with? Is that what
Insurance and investments, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I wasn't able to meet with people until I think May or June. And then we were able to, so at least, and I could do some work by phone, but not too much.
Okay. Well, I think that we used our 40 minutes very well here. Actually, I guess it's maybe 1 minute or 3 minutes shy because they count the time that I open up early. So we had just enough of time for Karen. So what we're going to do is close out this session and ask you to click in on the second link so that we can do the business meeting. And Karen, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's a pleasure meeting you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Following President Litz's welcome, the Pledge of Allegiance was said and the state song was sung with Becky Duke as the piano accompanist. Rosetta Brunner read the collect and then introduced Bob Lighty and his dog Tyrod from the Susquehanna Service Dogs. Mr. Lighty, Sergeant Major retired from the service, gave his military background, which included tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. As he returned to civilian life, the sights, the sounds, and the stress of combat remained with him. His golden retriever, Tyrod, helped him overcome this, and in his words, "Without Tyrod, I would not be here today." It continued to be a moving and inspirational program as he told us of the many services provided by service dogs. President Litz reported that we have received thank you letters for monetary contributions. These came from the Lebanon Rescue Mission on behalf of the Lebanon Free Clinic, Volunteers in Medicine, Joy Pantry in Jonestown, and the Caring Cupboard in Palmyra. Our next meeting is April the 3rd, 2:00 p.m. with Karen Groh, President of the Lebanon Valley Chamber of Commerce. Plans are underway for our annual luncheon at 12:00 noon on May 8. It will be held at the Lebanon Country Club with a program by Miss Senior America. The menu includes chicken piccata, triple chocolate mousse cake, water, rolls, butter, coffee, regular and decaf, and hot tea. No iced tea will be served. The cost is $25. As we looked toward future meetings, there was discussion as to how many of our members have received or are scheduled for vaccine. President Litz will poll those not in attendance. Respectfully submitted, Catherine Hoops.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve as presented?
I approve.
May I ask a question? Did I see the fee for the luncheon listed as $35 somewhere?
That was my mistake. I couldn't find your minutes, and I thought it was 35, and so I will correct that.
25 is right. Okay.
Yes, you are right. I was wrong.
All right. Very
okay.
good.
I think Becky made a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Whatever.
Oh, did you make the motion, Liz? I couldn't.
I did. I made a motion. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't tell who it was. Thank you.
Okay.
I was going by sound and I had it backwards. Okay. Any further discussion on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And did Lorraine email a treasurer's report? I don't think I got one.
I didn't see one.
Okay. Well, then we'll just do that at our next meeting. That's fine. Things haven't changed too much because we haven't been meeting, but we'll see that we catch up on that next time. That's fine. So, as you heard, thank you letters were received from all of the nonprofits that we supported this year. And I wondered if there were any other reports that people wanted to share. Liz, do you have anything? I know.
Well, as far as for the country club, we need the checks to Lorraine by, I think, April 23rd. So we do have the reservations to get to the country club. So if you could get your checks for $25 to Lorraine by the 23rd of April.
4/23. Let me make myself a note. And can you tell me, each of you, I want to double check, everyone here, have you been vaccinated?
I got my first one.
Okay, first, and you've been vaccinated, Joyce.
Yes.
Liz, have you been vaccinated?
No, I'm not taking that because of my allergies.
Okay, so are you comfortable with the?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay, Anne?
Yes, I had my first one.
Okay, Catherine?
Yes, both of them.
All right. Very good. That I'm just following up to make sure. I think we're still on a go to go live unless the country club has problems that their health gets sick or something. I think we're on a go the way it looks for May.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I will follow up with our entertainment, make sure they're on a go. And if not, I'll find something else in short order. But I'm going to do that now that we're a month out and we haven't had to cancel. And it just sounds like it's good. All right.
So is everyone on the call today going to be coming to the May meeting?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody on the call will be coming to the May meeting. Okay, super.
Yes, Becky.
Would you like us to bring guests to the May meeting, or do we not bring guests to the May meeting? Like, I didn't know.
I think they're allowed. I don't know, like potential members and things like that.
That's what I was thinking. If we had a potential member.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had much opportunity to do that all year. So, you know, I just thought maybe it might not be a bad idea if we could.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a plan.
But then I didn't know if we were limited on seating.
No, we're not limited on seating. That should be fine. We normally do reports and things, but we haven't really been doing that with our meetings. So in order to have guests, yeah, that should work.
Okay, if no one objects, then we will make that known. Now, who is 2735582? Could you please identify yourself?
Yes. It's Roysetta.
Oh, hi, Roysetta. How are you?
I'm fine. I didn't read the time correctly, and I apologize.
Oh, no apology necessary. We're just glad that you joined us. That is really good.
Thanks.
Now, the number we have in the book for you is 926-6682.
That's my cell.
Oh, that's your cell. Okay, so this is your home number then. I was looking through the phone numbers and couldn't find it in my book, so I didn't know who you were. Well, I'm so glad that you got on and you can hear us. That's wonderful. Roysetta, did you get your shots?
Yes, I did. You had something on it, and I said I got mine today. Okay. So yes, I got it on Tuesday.
Okay, and can you tell us if you're planning on going to the May luncheon?
Well, yes.
Okay, Liz is taking numbers. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Becky. Just want to make sure I have everyone's name written down here.
So it's definitely a go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's $25 to Lorraine by April 23rd.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, wonderful. We're really making progress there because everything has been so up in the air. Are there any? Yeah. Let's see. Joyce, do you have any reports?
No.
Okay, Becky, do you have any other reports?
I just wanted to say that Juniper Village is starting to loosen things up. We're still not meeting in the club yet, but you know, that seems like it would be on the horizon pretty soon, since we're allowing family members to come in and visit, and we're allowing the two sides of the building that we've been keeping apart are now allowed to do activities together. So I'm hoping that we can soon start using the club again.
Well, you keep us informed, I'm sure.
Yeah, I will, definitely.
Thank you. Catherine, do you have any reports?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anne, do you have any reports?
No, thank you.
Okay.
No.
Roysetta, did I ask you if you had any reports?
Negative, I do not.
Okay. I just don't want to miss anybody. I think it's important that if you had something you could share. The one thing that perhaps you heard, or if you didn't, I'd like to inform you that this is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And the number to call if you suspect child abuse is 1-800-932-0313. I'll repeat that in case Catherine's writing it down.
I have it.
1-800-932-0313. We unfortunately had two children who were neglected, and they lived about 3 miles apart. So it has been a really a big issue in the eye of the public locally. So we're doing everything we can to educate people so they know where to call, because that seemed to be some of the confusion. The local police have different criteria than they do at Child Line. And we have a CRC, a Child Recovery Center. I'm not sure if that's the right words for the acronym, but it's down the street, and that's where they do interviews, and it's taped and those kinds of things. It's all done so that it can go to court if it has to get prosecuted. And we also then have our caseworkers at Children and Youth who will then do everything they can to either monitor the children or help if bad enough, they will find them foster parents. They will do investigations, in other words. So each one has a different role, and it was confusing as to where it should be called and reported. And so that it's consistent, the state runs a child abuse line, and that's where you would report it. So you can share that with your friends and family and your circles so that they have the information as well. But Thursday, there was kickoffs in front of the courthouse, in front of the Anvil Library, in front of the Myerstown Library, and at the Palmyra Municipal Building to try and get it in most of the communities. I'm going to say 65, 70% of the population lives within 5 miles of Route 422, the major east-west route through Lebanon County. So they went from across the county, east to west on 422, basically doing these programs. So I think it was well thought out, and they're doing their best to make sure that the information is out there. So thank you, and this gives us a chance to promote it a little bit too. The other thing that was on my mind was to do a round robin and give everyone a chance to tell us what you're doing for the holiday weekend, or if you have something with your job or your family, whatever you want to tell us. Liz, we'll start with you.
Okay, we've been invited over to the neighbors for Easter dinner tomorrow, since all of our children are out of the area. So
that's nice.
That will be a nice.
Wonderful. And are you having ham, do you know?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Yes.
Royzetta, what is your round robin share?
Well, tomorrow I will be going to my daughter. Don't you all laugh at this. I have not made scalloped potatoes in umpteen years, and I'm going to try my best about making a pot full of scalloped potatoes tomorrow to take over. And my son-in-law is making the ham and all the trimmings and veggies and things like that. So let's hope my potatoes get good.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. If you have any leftovers, you might have to share. Catherine, how about you? Your plans?
Well, I am actually out in Ohio right now. So maybe that's why I had trouble getting in the first part. I'm sorry.
No.
With our daughter and son-in-law and several of their children, the others can't get here. But that's where we are, and we've been here since midweek.
Isn't that wonderful? You get to travel. That's lovely. Yeah.
2 daughters made it possible.
Wow.
One drove one way and the other one the other. So we're happy to be here.
Wonderful. And how about you?
I'm spending it with my young grandsons. My son and my young grandsons, they're 7 and 3.
Aww.
So it should be interesting. I'm doing the cooking.
Oh, you are? And what are you making?
I'm making ham, and of course potatoes, and the kids like corn on the cob. So I bought those little frozen corn on the cobs and salad and pie, of course.
What kind of pie?
It's a blueberry.
Ooh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that you would be a bad cook. It sounds like you're going to have a really nice time.
Well, you know what? When my kids were home, we did a lot more cooking. The older you get, you cook less.
True.
And so that sometimes you question yourself. Is this how I did it? Is that, But yes. So it should be a good day.
Okay, wonderful. Joyce, how about you?
My granddaughter moved to her home 3 blocks from us in June last year. We haven't been there yet because of she's a director of a child care, and her husband's in the entertainment business, one of the theaters over in Lancaster. So because they were exposed to a lot of people, we just didn't feel safe because we're older and have health problems. So we are going to her home because we have all been vaccinated twice, have our second vaccination. And we're going there tomorrow. And she's making the ham. I'm taking rolls. This is one year I'm not going to have to cook a lot. It gets harder and harder lifting those things out of the oven as you get older. And she's making the ham, but I'm going to take rolls. And I got a bunny butter. Some company makes them in the shape of a bunny, and apple pie. So I'm taking some things, and it'll just be 5 of us. And then my grandson is bringing his family for an egg hunt, but that'll be outside because both he and his wife are exposed and they're too young to get the vaccination. So we'll be outside with the children having an egg hunt. It sounds beautiful. So it looks like a beautiful day. I'm so happy because I haven't hugged any of these little kids for a year, and it's really starting to wear me down.
I understand. I see hugs and tears and kisses and just love flowing all over the place tomorrow. Yes. Becky, you have to tell us what you're doing.
Well, I think I mentioned that I'll be getting up before dawn to be over at the Moravian Church and play for their sunrise service. And then they have a 10:15 service. And then after that, my husband and I are just going to be having a ham and sweet potatoes and Brussels sprouts here at the house, just keeping it simple.
Sure. Well, that's great. Now, does the dog get any of those good leftovers or no?
No, we don't give them table scraps. And we got a second dog now too. That's our big news. We have a second dog, and my husband's taking him to obedience school. He's a Jack Russell Terrier.
Oh,
they're wired, aren't they?
Yes. Oh boy.
They're very active. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's great. I hope that you have a wonderful Easter. And yeah, I'm kind of like with the rest of you. My daughter and my grandchildren, I've seen, but I haven't been able to hug them. And it hasn't been very often that I've seen them, just from a distance mostly. So tomorrow's the day. We're going to my daughter's for lunch. And so I feel very blessed that we're going to be able to do that. It's been a long year, and hopefully I got my shots. I got my husband appointments, that he could get his shots. So we're set to go, and we got the Pfizer, and they're saying that Pfizer has announced that their vaccine is good for at least 6 months. And as another month or 2 goes by, they'll keep track of any people who come back in that did get theirs, and they might be able to say, well, it's good for 8 months or it's good for 10 months. That's to be seen. That was the unknown part, how long it would last. And but Pfizer's they announced this past week, at least 6 months. So that's a good thing. And so I'm very happy. And they have Moderna at our vaccination center. I have information. I think I put it at the bottom there, but they have over 4,000 vials of vaccine that they can administer. That's just CNS, the firm we hired out of Lancaster to come in and help man our vaccination center. Do you know that is huge? And so over 4 days, they're going to vaccinate over 4,000 people, just that one company. And I think it was Thursday or Friday, Wellspring opened up, and they're administering at a minimum of 1,000, and they hope to increase that. A lot of it depends how much vaccine that they get. It's not that they don't want to do it, but the governor has to release it. And the companies that are doing it right and following the rules and, filing the reports on time and getting the vaccine out and not wasting it, those are the ones that get increases in the amount of vaccine that they get. So I think that we have 2 good companies in there. The other one in Lebanon County who would qualify as a larger, there's 300 that the state has narrowed it down to, 300 businesses. The other one in Lebanon County that would qualify is that, I don't know if it's called Family First Birth, but they're in the old sanatorium, and they have a clinic in there, but I don't know that it's big enough to take a lot. So just like at a drugstore, you can only get, 2 or 4 in and social distance and let them sit for 15 minutes. But out there, you can have 100 or whatever. We have 170,000 square feet at the old Kmart building. So we can take.
They were very, very efficient.
I've been getting nothing but praises. So we have 2 to 3 more groups that we could actually accommodate in there if they want. And I do know Family First would be eligible. If the pharmacies want to do more, they could even come in. And we're using special federal 911, 911, 911 it is, funds from FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to pay the rent, which is like $15,000 a month. It's crazy, but you needed big open space that they could set people, 6 feet apart. And there are just bunches of chairs in there sitting out, and then the nurses can observe, and if they need help, they have first aid and safety patrol. If somebody acts out or comes in that they are upset that we're giving vaccines, I mean, there's all kinds of people, different thinking. We have a sheriff's deputy there just for security, just in case. Hopefully nothing will happen. We don't expect anything on this, but one of the things the county was, I was warned about on the governor's call yesterday, is that with his staff, that depending the outcome of this trial that's going on, there's possible civil unrest, I guess on either side if they're not happy, and we should be prepared for that. And of course there was a shooting in Washington, D.C. later in that day, so I don't know if it was related or not, but they told us to be on our toes. So everyone be safe. It's a trying time and everyone's trying to get through this. So working together, I think we can, and I know we can. It's like the little train that could, up that hill and then down the other side. And I think we're at the top of the hill, ready to start coasting down the other side because the vaccines are coming more frequently and in larger quantities. And it's looking good out there. There's hope at the end of the tunnel. So I thank you all. Is there anything else? We mentioned the May 8th annual luncheon at the Country Club. Is there anything else anyone has to add that I'm forgetting? Oh, I know. I did touch base.
Board meeting.
Pardon?
Board meeting.
Yes, that's August. Oh, wait, let me look here for you.
April 19th.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, I have my book here. Yeah, April 19th. I said August. April 19th. And so we will have that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll see if Becky's open, and if she is, we'll meet down there. And if not, we'll do Zoom again. But, there's a chance we could meet in person. We'll see what happens at Juniper. I forget what I was saying before, but that's okay. I think we've come to a natural close. And I don't know if it tells me how many minutes we're in, but I'm glad we set up the second Zoom link, and it worked out really well because we could do Karen in the first section and the business meeting here and not tie her up all afternoon. So thank you for joining us. Have a blessed Easter. And I look forward to seeing you May 8th at the Country Club.
Thanks,
Thank
Joelle.
you.
Thank you, Joelle.